Stop Exeter.
Hi, I'm Paul Nicholson, and this is Next Stop Exeter. We're here at the American Independence Museum to talk with the curator, Julie Williams, who's going to talk about all things independence here in Exeter, including the upcoming American Independence Museum Festival. Join us for all that and more right here on Next Stop Exeter. Hello, I'm here at the Exeter American Independence Museum, and joining me is Julie Williams, who is the director here. Julie, thank you for joining us here on Next Stop Exeter.
Thank you for having us.
Julie's here in her third summer season with the museum. We have a big festival coming up shortly. Julie, can you tell us a bit about what you have on schedule this summer here at the museum?
Yes, well, our festival is probably the largest event. This year it's our 25th anniversary of the American Independence Festival, which is by far the largest day for the museum out of the entire year. We see more people on just that one day than we do all year long when you add up our school programs and tours and other events. So it's really quite a spectacular day.
And typically that's held in July.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of American Independence festivals that take place here in the United States, I assume predominantly on the East Coast, how does this rank in terms of size? Is this the premier event on an annual basis?
Well, I think so, especially for the date that we have it. Most Independence festivals you hear about are on July 4th or the weekend of July 4th, and ours is 3 weeks later. And the reason why is because we don't necessarily celebrate the day that the Declaration was written up, but we celebrate the day that the Declaration arrived in Exeter, New Hampshire. So we are the only festival that I know about, although they were looking at creating one in Worcester, Mass. A few years ago. But we're the only festival that celebrates the actual arrival of the news to the local town. And we do that complete with a horseback rider that comes in with the document and hand delivers it to our reenactor role player, John Taylor Gilman, who reads it aloud to the townspeople of Exeter, just as it would have been done hundreds of years ago.
So here in the museum, this is my first visit here, and my first thought is that at my house right now it's very, very warm. Mm-hmm. In here it's very, very cool, so I find that very comforting. Mm. Can you tell us a bit about the museum in terms of when it was started as a museum, how old this building is?
Yes, right now we're sitting in the Lad Gilman house. This is a later portion added on in the early 1900s, kind of like a caretaker's cottage. But the larger portion of the Lad Gilman house, the more historic looking one, dates back to 1721. It was added on over time. It's probably cool in here because it was cool last night, and the exterior of the building is made of brick, which was quite a luxury for the day. Most houses, as you can imagine back then, were made of wood. Brick was very expensive. It needed to be shipped in, imported in from brickyards, as there weren't any local to Exeter at that time. And so what I like to tell the school children when they come into the home is think of the largest mansion you could possibly dream of, and that's pretty much what this house was back in its day.
So it's conveniently tucked next door to a bank, and I assume that 200 and some years ago there wasn't a bank here, but it's also kind of waterfront property, correct? Mm-hmm. What took place in this house back in the days of the American Revolution? Was there a business here at that point in time?
Oh yes, the person who owned the building, Nicholas Gilman, he was a merchant, and he had lots of ships that came in and out of town. Exeter was the revolutionary capital of New Hampshire at the time. It was a bustling metropolis. And the river was a lot bigger. Swayze Parkway has kind of filled in the river over time. So if you imagine looking out the back porch of the Lad Gilman house, you could have seen the boats come in and out and dock at the harbor.
So all these ships would come and weigh anchor here. Mm-hmm. I assume there was probably warehouses of some sort that were located near the homes that were here on the street.
Well, I'm sure. It was a popular town. The house here itself was mostly lived in by the Gilman family, so there was a residential area around here as well. However, Nicholas Gilman, during the time of the Revolution, after we ousted the royal governor, Nicholas Gilman was asked to be the state treasurer. And so some argue that this house was also used as the treasury for the state. However, I disagree and think mostly it was a residential purpose. Later on, the Gilman family, John Taylor Gilman, the same one that reads the Declaration aloud to the townspeople of Exeter, he becomes a governor of this for the state of New Hampshire. He served 14 years, and he actually lived in this house, so this was also known as the governor's mansion too.
I see. So with the building that you have, you host tours on an almost daily basis year-round here?
We do. When a few years ago, we were only operating about 3 days a week for the summer months. And now we are up to 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we're open from the start of May all the way through the end of November. The only reason that we're closed in the winter months is because of the snow. We just can't handle the snow removal. But we want to be accessible. We don't want to be one of the historic houses that, is only open when the third moon is, right. So we're trying to, with these new hours this year, it's our first year at being open Tuesday through Saturday, and last year we had quite a large crowd, yesterday we had quite a large crowd come through, so it's already proven to be well worth it for us.
And are you doing this on your own, or do you have some help?
Previous to this year, it was me and one other part-time staff member, but now we have a total of 4 staff members from a grant from the Society of the Cincinnati. They gave us some money so that we can really try to elevate our programs to the next level. So we are open more days this year. We're serving more schools this year than ever before, and we wouldn't have been able to do this without that grant funding to employ the staff. But the one thing I should note is it's not just the staff, it's also the hundreds of volunteers that make it possible too. We could not do this just with the 4 staff for sure. It's the volunteers that give the tours that really bring the stories alive to our visitors, the volunteers who interact with our school children and make them want to come back for more. So they're the ones that plan the festival, they're the ones that our board members direct the operations of the museum, so we couldn't do it without any of them.
So how did you become the director here?
Oh, well, I live close, locally. I have a young family, and for years I've worked in museums, bouncing back and forth between the curatorial and fundraising capacity. And I was working in a full-time position in Massachusetts, fundraising almost $3 million a year for a nonprofit there. But when I saw this opportunity come up, I thought, oh, what a great way to help my local community and use my background towards saving a local gem.
I see. So this is your first museum that you've been the director of then?
This is my first time as the director, yes. Yep. And when I was hired, it was a time of the museum after it had closed due to financial difficulty. So I was hired to kind of put it back together in some way in order for us to do some strategic planning and figure out moving forward for the future. But we ended up doing so well the first year that I was here that I became the director, and then we have a strategic plan now, and we're on our path to a much brighter future for the museum.
I see. Last night I had an interesting experience. I was in St. Louis at the airport, and they had a honor flight coming in, and there was a 15-year-old boy wearing an MP uniform for World War II, and he had a table much like this set up with stuff from World War II. So I asked him the obvious question, what are you doing? And he said that when he was in the 2nd grade he saw Private Ryan, and ever since he had been enamored with stuff from World War II. I said, so what are you going to do with all this? He goes, someday I hope to be the curator of the World War II Museum. Now this is a 15-year-old dressed in a World War II uniform hanging out at an airport. And I was flabbergasted. And I think, here's a teenager who's already got his future mapped out, but his future is he wanted to be the curator of a museum. I said, you should send him your resume now.
Yes.
Right? Because you probably won't get the job, but at least they're going to know, hey, there's a 15-year-old kid that wants to do this sort of thing. But what I found interesting was he visited nursing homes, and seniors were giving him material from World War II.
Right.
You have a house here that's over 200 years old, and you have a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah.
Do you have people that are donating material from the Revolutionary War era?
Oh, sometimes we do get donations in. Our most significant donation in recent history came last year when we received a handwritten letter from George Washington to General John Sullivan talking about the completion of the war and congratulating him on his service. And it was very exciting. The day I brought it home to the museum, there were 2 bald eagles perched in our tree over the house. So couldn't write that story. Couldn't make that story up if we wanted to. But yeah, we have thousands of items in our collection here, and the way they landed here is over time. Starting about 1901, an organization called the Society of the Cincinnati in the state of New Hampshire purchased this Lad Gilman house because of its historical nature, having been the governor's mansion where the Gilman family lived. Mm-hmm. And they used this house as their clubhouse. The Society of the Cincinnati is the nation's oldest veterans organization, and it was founded after the Revolutionary War, where the officers of the Continental Army got together and said, we need to get together and kind of remember all of our sacrifices and make sure that we fight to ensure that those who fought for our freedom are compensated. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that still stands today in terms for the society continues to exist through the descendants of those who fought in the Revolutionary War, and they want to make sure that people, remember all that it took to fight for our freedoms. So from about 1901 until continuing on today, the Society continues to own this building. The museum operates separate from them. However, they donate things from their family. So that's how we get this letter or a sword or whatnot added to our collection.
So, and do you have any individuals who come in unannounced and say, oh, by the way, I have a copy of the Declaration of Independence?
Oh, we get that weekly. Yeah, we do get a lot of phone calls from people all over the country saying that they do think they have a copy of the Declaration. And it's probably because we have one of the earliest copies of the Declaration of Independence. There are 26 known Dunlap broadsides to exist in the world right now, and they are pretty much the first copies because they were the first printed version. All that handwritten one that everyone thinks of when they think of the Declaration, that wasn't set to be written out until July 19th, many weeks after the original Dunlap was printed. And so there's a lot of people who find copies here and there and ask us first, but we're not appraisers or we're not equipped to really make determinations on those things, so we usually direct them to an appraiser or someone formal who can really help them out.
So you have a copy, one of the 26?
Yes.
On the premise here, or is it kept in a vault somewhere?
It is in a vault somewhere, and that is mostly because although it's cool in this room right now, by midday it'll be 90% humidity here. One of our largest challenges that I noticed the second I walked in the door when I was first hired is that this building is not climate controlled, which makes it very difficult to keep these historical artifacts here because of the constant fluctuations in humidity. So we've identified a number of really critical pieces in our collection, including draft copies of the Constitutions and this Dunlap broadside, and we've moved them to a place that is a better, more sustainable place for them while we figure out how to make Lad Gilman House a better environment for them so they can come home. That's the goal. We want to bring them home here.
Is there any items out there that you're particularly interested in acquiring for this museum that you don't maybe already have?
Well, things come up all the time, and we're not in a position because we don't have a collections fund to really purchase items. But we just missed at auction one of the Gilman family Bibles and a sword from the Revolution from Nicholas Gilman Jr. So that was quite heartbreaking when we missed that potential. But anything that pertains to the Revolution and the Gilman family and the history of New Hampshire's role in the Revolution, the New Hampshire regiments, would only serve to strengthen our story here at the museum. If
someone would like to become a member here, be a volunteer to help out, how could they go about doing that?
They should check out our new website, which is recently done by an amazing volunteer, Cord Bloomquist from Ready Made Web. Have to plug him. But our website has all sorts of information on how to become a volunteer. We look for volunteers to just help out one day to help stuff mailings, or volunteers to be reoccurring, giving tours to the public or helping us with our school programs. So there's plenty of opportunity. It's not just interacting with the public, but it's doing other things as well as helping with our facilities committee, or our collections committee, our development committee. There's so many opportunities. And membership is a huge way to support the museum on so many levels. 80% of our income comes from donations. We are not supported by the government at all, not even in the least. And we rely on our local friends to support us even being able to open our doors. So every membership really helps us open our doors, helps us see more school children, helps us do more innovative programming.
And what does it cost to become a member?
Memberships as low as $35 for an individual, and it's $50 for a family. And it really is the best deal in town, I like to say. We have a new program this year called Fridays at Folsom, where mostly on the first Friday of every month, people can come to the Folsom Tavern and have a beer and hang out. This is great for families because we usually have kids' activities going on outside. There's live music. This is all in conjunction with Team's First Fridays initiative here in downtown Exeter to get it more vibrant and exciting. And members receive 50% discount on admission, which includes the beer. So you get discount admission on our popular events. You get free admission to some other events, such as the Independence Festival or for tours. And you get a discount on our gift shop as well, where we have lots of really exciting perfect gift items that I think most people don't realize because we're so set back from Water Street. But you don't have to come in just for a tour. You could come in and take a peek in the shop and see all the interesting books and cookware and candles and soaps, handmade jewelry, a lot of the stuff made from New Hampshire.
Wow. Well, beer and independence, two of my favorite topics.
Yeah.
Julie, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing the museum with us, and look forward to a very successful festival.
Thank you very much.
On Saturday, July 18th, 2015, the American Independence Museum celebrated its 25th annual festival. The museum grounds played host to numerous artisans demonstrating various colonial skills. Spinning yarn. Blacksmithing. And brew making.
No, I forgot last year. I threw this wet stuff right in with some dry stuff. And forgot about it. Come back at 2 or 3 weeks later.
Can't do that. Do you punch it down?
No.
I don't think he's making it right now. Do you dry it?
The British were encamped in Swayze Park along the river. The festival wouldn't be complete without a fife and drum corps. Looks like even colonial musicians like ice cream.
We have a battle reenactment. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the date. Oh, it was.
And the day ends with a brilliant fireworks display sponsored by the town of Exeter. Thank you for joining us here on Next Stop Exeter. If you'd like to share this episode with others, find us on YouTube under Next Stop Exeter. So long, everyone.